Hey guys, just a quick reminder, in celebration of the MW beta going live, my G Fuel discount code Immortal has been boosted to a 30% discount for pretty much everything on the site. So with that, if you are looking to try G Fuel for the first time, or simply restock your favorite tub, now is definitely the best time to do so. However, my code will only get you 30% off your order until the 17th, so be sure to act fast if you want to take advantage of those increased savings. Anyways, on to the regular video. The MW multiplayer beta is now officially live for everyone on PlayStation, as the open beta is finally here. And of course, next week we'll have PC and Xbox One players joining in on the fun too. Now, the beta has seen a lot of drama and controversy so far regarding what some players think is necessary and what others think is not. But for today, we're setting aside the hot topics and really focusing in on what you as a player can do, or rather, in the case of this video, not do, to increase your overall performance in-game. Whether that means staying alive longer and earning more streaks, or just simply getting higher kill counts each game. Today we're breaking down 6 big mistakes that you're making here in Modern Warfare. But before we jump into all of that, if you are new here to the channel, first off, hey, hi, how you doing? Secondly, feel free to subscribe with your post notifications turned on. That way you'll always know when a new video goes live, and you can stay on top of everything going on in the world of Call of Duty. Also, if you guys enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like rating on it, as it would be much appreciated. And now let's get into the big mistakes that a lot of players are making here in the MW beta. So, right off the bat, one of the smallest things that actually has a pretty big impact in game is that of motion blur and film grain. Now, these are just 2 settings that simply change how the overall game looks. However, these 2 settings coinciding with one another can really make the game a lot more difficult than it needs to be. And thus, a huge mistake that a lot of players are making is that of leaving motion blur and film grain turned on. Film grain itself is set to a default of 0.25, I believe, or something like that, which essentially just adds some sharpness to the game. Which you might say, hey, if a game looks sharper, it technically should look a bit better, right? Well, not necessarily. Film grain adds some noise and some grain to the game's overall look in a sense, which might not seem like it's a super big deal. However, when it is left on, it can make spotting enemies or equipment, especially those in darker places, a lot harder. If someone is playing as Kruger, for instance, they are already kind of well hidden in certain situations, thanks to his face mask and also his darker outfit. So if Kruger is sitting in a bush or laying prone in a field, he might be a bit harder to spot, especially if film grain is turned on, as it is going to make it seem less clear what exactly is the ground or what's the bush, and what is the actual player sitting there. So definitely turn off film grain to avoid making that mistake, and while you're at it, turn off weapon and world motion blur as well. That way, when you are sprinting around or looking left to right or up and down, so on and so forth, your overall image is going to be a lot clearer and also a lot smoother. Whereas with motion blur turned on, everything is going to be, well, blurry. I know I have such a way with words, right? Anyways, it is going to be way easier to see enemies, equipment, and pretty much everything if the world and weapon motion blur alongside film grain is all turned off. So don't make the mistake of leaving those on when you first jump in. The second mistake that I see a lot of people making is with their attachment setups on their weapons. In the past, attachments have only offered beneficial upgrades to your weapons, whereas here in Modern Warfare, most attachments come with a pro or two. However, they also come with some cons as well. So just because you unlock an attachment doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make your gun perform better. Now, when it comes down to what attachments work well and what attachments don't, it really does depend a lot on your playstyle in specific. If you're someone who is always running around trying to get up in the enemy's spawn and just overall play aggressive all match long, things like mobility and ADS speed are going to be a bit more important to you. Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, if you're someone who plays a bit slower, who maybe sits in the back and watches over a flag or something, recoil control and stability may be a bit more important there. That said, in the past, when you put on something like a red dot sight, it simply gave you a red dot sight and that was that. Here in MW though, if you put on a red dot or a hollow or whatever else, it's actually going to hurt your ADS in speed. And same deal goes with something like a compensator or a muzzle brake. If you throw one of those on, it's also going to hurt your ADS in speed. So really, there are a lot of situations where you can upgrade one stat in specific, whether it be recoil control or whatever else, and also detrimentally hurt another stat like ADS speed or overall movement speed, which ultimately leaves your weapon performing worse than before. So unlike a lot of other Call of Duty games, sometimes not running certain attachments yields better performance than with those attachments on. However, like I said, take into consideration your playstyle and obviously the weapon itself here when choosing your attachment setup, but also pay a lot of attention to what negative effects certain setups bring forth. Next up, another mistake that a lot of people make, including myself, to be honest, I am pretty bad at doing this right now, is overlapping your personal radar and your UAV. If you do run both streaks, you can earn them back to back, either at 3 and 4 kills if you don't have hardline, or at 2 and 3 kills if you do. And honestly, I'm so used to always calling in my non-lethals together that I just naturally spam my streaks when I earn them. But in this game, especially when the minimap is still not set in stone, overlapping your radar and your UAV could potentially be wasting out on some good radar time when you could be using one streak at a time, and essentially just extending the overall amount of time when you can actually see red dots appearing on the map. In my opinion, it is typically best to call one in, let it run out, and then call in the next, and hopefully in that time, your team will have gotten some UAVs to toss up as well, resulting in even more radar time for everyone, which is really the ideal end result there. So just be conscious of what you're calling in when you're calling it in, because it really could be the difference maker in your streak ending too soon, or you carrying on closer to that nuke. Moving on, mistake number 4 that quite a few people are making right now is double sprinting too much or at the wrong time. Double sprinting is a brand new feature to Call of Duty multiplayer here in MW, and while it is incredibly helpful for getting to the B flag faster off of spawn, or getting out of a sticky situation sometimes, all too many times I see myself and other players getting caught mid-sprint without enough time to get their sights up and engage in a gunfight. The time to kill in this game is very, very fast. So if you do get shot, you don't really have much time to react before you're just respawning. So with that, use your double sprint cautiously. Activate it when going from building to building, get to a choke point quicker off of spawn with it, but don't go guns a-blazing into a sea of enemies with your double sprint on, thinking you're going to be able to outgun anyone and everyone, because simply put, you won't. Next up, and honestly this one is really common, putting yourself at a disadvantage in an engagement. Back in like MW3, Black Ops 2, and some of the other older Call of Duties, drop shotting used to be a huge thing as it helped win a lot of gunfights. But in recent years, jump shotting or just simply strafing has kind of become the new wave, since drop shotting was essentially eliminated in BO4, and of course it was kind of non-existent and didn't make any sense to do in the advanced movement titles. But here in MW, drop shotting is back, and man oh man, it dominates gunfights. Going back to that quick time to kill, there is a lot of inconsistency when it comes to who lives and who dies in a head-on engagement. However, I can say that if you drop shot or even just crouch in a head-on fight, you are going to come out as the winner more often than not. You drop down incredibly fast in this game, which normally leads to the opponent not being able to react fast enough to get their sights back on you, and thus you can probably take them out before they readjust. So rather than just engaging in a straight up fight and just standing and aiming in, try and force some more crouch or even drop shots and just see how many more streaks you stay on because of it. Trust me, it seriously makes a huge difference. Then finally, the last big mistake that I see a lot of players making is ignoring the doors. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Modern Warfare has introduced the extremely unique and game-changing ability to open doors manually, and also the ability to bust through doors like you seriously mean business. However, doors can actually be used pretty effectively to gain an advantage on your opponents simply by keeping them shut. If you walk into a room with an open door and you close it, obviously the only way into that room is through that door or potentially a window or other opening. But more often than not, you can manually keep an eye on that window or opening and use the door as an audio cue for incoming enemies, as there is a very noticeable sound when an enemy busts through a door, and obviously if you hear or see a door open, that's an immediate sign that someone is on the other side. So while plenty of players are going to see a doorway and honestly think nothing of it, it can essentially be used as its own mini radar or sensor in a way, thanks to its audio cues, which may feel like it's a small thing to bring up, but honestly it can result in a pretty big advantage in those gunfights around those areas, so just take that into consideration. Who would have thought, in 2019, I'm giving door tips in Call of Duty, dude? What even is this anymore? Anyways, with all of that being said, those are 6 big mistakes that a lot of players are making here in Modern Warfare, so hopefully by me pointing them out, you can improve your overall gameplay experience, at least by a little bit. If you guys enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like rating on it, as it would be much appreciated. And of course, if you are brand new here to the channel, feel free to subscribe with your post notifications turned on, that way you'll always stay on top of everything going on in the world of Call of Duty. As I mentioned in the intro, up until the 17th, you can use code IMMORTAL to get 30% off your entire order on gfuel.com. So now is the best time to stock up on your favorites, or just try G Fuel for the first time. Once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.